Bonjour tout le monde. I want to begin by thanking the people of Charlottetown and Prince Edward Island for being such wonderful hosts these past few days. I've been on the island already a couple of times this summer, and it's such a special part of Canada. We've got the whole team here. We've had a productive retreat, and I know we're all really excited for the work ahead. But let me start, though, with a quick update on the wildfire situation out west and in the north. We're relieved to hear that fires may be coming under control and that critical infrastructure in the Northwest Territories remains intact. At Monday's Incident Response Group meeting, Minister Sajjan updated us from the ground in BC. We also discussed how to make sure people from the Northwest Territories can return home when it's safe. The Canadian Armed Forces continue to be deployed on the ground to support, and Service Canada is helping evacuees. We're on the ground, we are helping, and we will continue to be there. I want to thank all the brave firefighters battling blazes across the country this summer, and I want to again thank all Canadians who've stepped up to open their communities, to open their homes to people fleeing in difficult times. Canadians really show who they are when we're constantly there to help out each other. Notre gouvernement pense à toutes les personnes touchées par les feux de forêt. On va continuer de suivre la situation et on va continuer d'être là pour tout le monde. Now, the world has faced a lot of shocks over the past few years, from the pandemic to Putin's illegal invasion of Europe, to global inflation, to a worsening climate emergency, and Canadians have felt it and are feeling it every step of the way. From the very first meeting of this new cabinet to this retreat, I've told ministers that our most important job is to protect the promise of Canada, to build a society where, when people work hard, they get ahead, where Canadians are safe in their communities and in the world, where they're secure in the knowledge that the services they rely on, from health care to income support after retirement, will continue to be there for them, where we're building an economy focused on the middle class and people working hard to join it. On fait face à plusieurs défis, mais je peux vous dire que notre équipe est très motivée. Au cours de l'été, on a rencontré des gens partout au pays. On les a écoutés. Cette semaine, on a eu l'occasion d'entendre des experts. Notre priorité continue d'être de faire tout ce qui est en notre pouvoir pour que les gens puissent mener la vie qu'ils souhaitent. So let me talk to you about two of our core priorities. The first is the rising cost of housing. Canadians in the middle class who are working hard to join it are up against this challenge, and this is a challenge that's been decades in the making. Our government has been stepping up over the past years. At this retreat, we studied historical trends and data from StatCan's long-form census, which are helping us understand these issues even more clearly. Yesterday, we heard from experts and directly from Canadians who are facing these problems. Everyone agrees that it's a complex issue that requires solutions that bring together all orders of government, the private sector, and the nonprofit sector. From zoning to corporations heating homes as assets to the rising cost of building supplies, there's no doubt that we all have a lot of work to do, because more and more vulnerable people are at risk of homelessness. Middle-class Canadians who want to build equity through home ownership feel increasingly like that dream is out of reach. And now more and more renters in the housing market means rising demand is causing rent to rise for everyone. So this government is focused on getting more housing built and making sure families have places to grow. Selon des rapports publiés récemment, on doit tous se donner comme défi d'en faire plus. Et on doit le faire ensemble à l'échelle du pays. On doit bâtir un marché du logement qui fonctionne pour les gens. On est tous d'accord qu'il faut unir nos efforts à travers le secteur du logement. Notre équipe est déterminée à poursuivre le travail qu'on a déjà commencé avec des programmes comme la Stratégie nationale sur le logement, les fonds pour accélérer la construction de logements qui aident à augmenter l'offre de logements, et le compte d'épargne libre d'impôt pour l'achat d'une première propriété qui aide les gens à épargner en vue d'une mise de fonds. As a federal government, we're going to continue working hard and showing leadership to bring all sectors together and all orders of government, because it takes all of us working together to get this done. To date, we've helped almost 2 million Canadians find a place to call home, and we're currently on a path to double construction of new housing over the next decade so we can meet the growing housing needs of Canadians. Deuxièmement, aujourd'hui, je veux parler d'une autre de nos priorités, de faire en sorte que la prochaine génération de Canadiens puisse réussir. On ne peut pas parler des coûts du logement sans parler de l'impact sur les jeunes. Que ce soit d'être propriétaire ou locataire, la prochaine génération vit énormément de stress avec la question du logement. To young Canadians, I want to say something. You've had 2 crucial years of adulthood dramatically interrupted by COVID, and then you were hit by global inflation and increased interest rates. These events upended your educations, your first jobs, your early years of building a career and a network. So we've been working hard to make sure that our economy has great jobs for you. We've eliminated interest on loans for your education. We're helping you save up to buy a home, but we know there's lots more to do. We owe it to you to take action so you can fully benefit from the promise of Canada, so you can succeed and access all the opportunities that generations before you had, so that you can have both a healthy economy and a healthy environment in strong, vibrant communities long into the future. As a team, this is one of our top priorities. Les membres de notre Conseil des ministres s'assurent de rendre des comptes et de tenir toutes les promesses qu'on a faites aux Canadiens, de continuer à offrir des garderies accessibles, abordables et de qualité à travers le pays, de fournir des soins dentaires à un prix abordable, de renforcer les soins de santé publique, de poursuivre une véritable réconciliation avec les peuples autochtones. We're also tackling climate change across the economy through everything from huge projects that are cutting pollution on an industrial scale to a price on pollution that puts a quarterly rebate worth hundreds of dollars in people's pockets. This summer has been marked by terrifying and devastating wildfires from coast to coast to coast. Communities have watched fires destroy their homes and businesses, and virtually no place in Canada has been left untouched by dangerous air quality due to the smoke. Climate policies are more urgent than ever. Canadians cannot afford leaders who want to roll them back. In these times, Canadians need a government that believes in them and invests in their future. No one, not one, that thinks damaging cuts are the solution to everything. Our economy is strong and growing, with the second highest GDP growth in the G7 this year, second only to the United States. And almost 1 million more Canadians have jobs than before the pandemic. And wages are going up. Our government is making sure that as our economy grows, it remains an economy that works for all Canadians. Canada is the best country in the world. Let's make it even better. Merci.
Merci, le Premier ministre. Thank you, Prime Minister. Nous avons 20 minutes pour les questions des médias. We have 20 minutes for questions from media, and we will start with Mia Rapson from the Canadian Press.
Good morning. You've been told by experts that the lack of cooperation with municipalities, with provinces, with home builders is one of the chief reasons that we haven't been able to make progress on housing. They told you this week that that is something that needs to happen. Will you commit today to having a national housing accord to make sure that cooperation happens?
Over the past number of years, we have been working closely with provinces and municipalities on the issue of housing. Whether it's announcements I've made with premiers standing beside me as we've talked about housing, or whether it's the direct investments we're working on with municipalities, whether it's the Rapid Housing Initiative or the Housing Accelerator Fund, that's $4 billion for municipalities to accelerate zoning changes, increase densification, create more affordable housing. These are the kinds of things that we've been doing. But yes, it is clear there is a need for much more coordination, and I look forward to working alongside not just premiers and mayors, but also the for-profit and not-for-profit sector. Everyone needs to be coordinated and aligned in solving the challenges of housing. It's something that Canada has done before. When we think about the waves of GIs coming back at the end of World War II and the massive construction boom and challenges that were faced then, or the moment in the 60s and 70s when the children, the baby boom hit their 20s and all wanted to move into new homes or get rentals or build up their own equity. There have been challenges before in housing in Canada, and we've been able to solve it by working together. That's exactly what we're going to keep doing now.
Bonjour, Louis Blouin de Radio-Canada. J'aimerais que vous m'expliquiez ce raisonnement derrière cette idée qui est avancée d'un plafond sur le nombre de visas qui sont octroyés aux étudiants étrangers et comment vous faites pour éviter que les étudiants étrangers deviennent un peu des boucs émissaires de la crise du logement.
Je comprends bien qu'à différents moments, il y a eu différentes cibles ou différentes causes ou des gens attaqués comme étant responsables de la crise du logement. On a vu que c'était des propriétaires étrangers à un moment donné, c'était des développeurs sans souci, c'est maintenant peut-être des étudiants internationaux. Il n'y a pas juste une cause, il y a énormément de facteurs et les gens le savent très bien qui rentrent dans cette situation de crise du logement qu'on est en train de vivre. Et oui, il va falloir qu'on soit bien réfléchi et qu'on réagisse à chaque élément du problème de façon responsable. Mais ça ne sert à rien de blâmer une personne ou un groupe de personnes pour un problème qui se développe depuis des décennies au Canada. L'important, c'est qu'on travaille ensemble de façon respectueuse et collaborative sur quelque chose sur lequel tous les gouvernements sont d'accord. On doit améliorer l'accès au logement pour les citoyens. On a une économie qui fonctionne très bien. On a énormément d'emplois. Il nous manque du monde pour faire ce travail. Il nous manque des endroits pour bien loger de façon sécure ces gens-là. C'est ça le problème qu'on va se mettre à régler. Et on va le faire de façon collaborative, respectueuse, mais concrète. I think we have to be very careful. Over the past years, we've seen a lot of people or a lot of different groups blamed for the housing crisis. At one point, it was foreign home buyers. At another point, it was developers being super aggressive. Another point, it was underinvestments by various orders of government. Another point now, it's people are saying, oh, it's international students. Yes, there's lots of different factors that go into this housing crisis, but it's something that has been brewing and developing over the past number of decades. And the way to solve it will be, yes, to look at all the different factors that contribute in different ways and make sure that all ideas are on the table. But fundamentally, we only get through this by rolling up our sleeves and getting the work done collaboratively across all the different sectors and orders of government that have different responsibilities for it. Working with provinces, working with municipalities, working with the not-for-profit sector, working with the private sector and developers. These are things that we have to do in a thoughtful way. And the good news is, Canada has done this before. We have faced housing crises before in our history. In World War II, when the GIs returned, when Canadian Armed Forces returned, we built massive numbers of homes. The federal government was directly involved in building entire neighborhoods that exist to this day. And then in the 60s and 70s, when the children of the baby boom came of age, there was a need to build a lot more housing so they could start their lives properly. We have faced these challenges before, and we've solved them by rolling up our sleeves, figuring out and working together. Now, our government has been engaged in the housing file since 2015, after the previous Conservative government washed its hands of investments in housing across the country. We're going to continue to step up and work collaboratively and get this fixed for Canadians. Canada's done this before. We're going to do it again.
Québec, déjà ce matin, dit qu'ils sont opposés à un plafond sur les étudiants étrangers, dit que c'est pas à Ottawa de fixer des seuils. Avez-vous l'impression que c'est un peu le monde à l'envers? Qu'est-ce que vous répondez à Québec?
Écoutez, on va être là pour travailler de façon collaborative avec tous les différents premiers ministres. On sait que au Québec, par exemple, la situation au niveau du logement est différente parce qu'il y a plus de logements abordables au Québec, une plus grande proportion de subventions au niveau des logements au Québec que dans d'autres provinces. Mais comme toujours, on va regarder la situation, on va travailler de façon collaborative et respectueuse avec les différentes juridictions et on va se concentrer sur le défi qu'on voit ensemble, de s'assurer que les gens puissent avoir des logements abordables qui ont de l'allure.
Prochaine question.
Bonjour, Olivier Ferrand-Boissier de TVA. On dirait quand même que le ton change en provenance de vos ministres concernant la question de l'immigration. Maintenant que c'est une question qui semble se poser à la grandeur du pays, est-ce que vous êtes prêt à considérer cette cible-là de 500 000 nouveaux arrivants par année?
On sait très bien que la croissance économique du Canada, que les opportunités que nous avons pour créer des bons emplois, pour répondre à des besoins de pénurie de main-d'œuvre à travers le pays, pour créer des communautés plus riches et plus vibrantes, ça passe par l'immigration. Et on le fait au Canada depuis des décennies et ça nous a amené à être le meilleur pays du monde maintenant. Mais notre défi, ça a toujours été, ça va toujours être de s'assurer que ces gens qui arrivent puissent réussir, puissent s'intégrer, puissent continuer de contribuer, comme toutes les générations auparavant, à la croissance de ce pays. Donc, nous allons continuer de regarder les défis, mais la réponse, c'est pas d'être moins ambitieux, c'est d'être là avec les bons outils, les bonnes réponses, en travaillant à l'échelle du pays de façon collaborative avec tous les différents paliers de gouvernement pour résoudre ces questions-là.
Bonjour, M. Trudeau. Michel Sabat, la presse canadienne. Statistique Canada nous apprend que le nombre de personnes pouvant converser en français en Ontario est à son plus bas depuis 1971. Vous avez adopté C13. Quelle est donc la prochaine étape? Vous engagez-vous à adopter des cibles d'immigration francophone considérablement plus élevées pour rétablir le poids des francophones, comme le demande la FCFA?
Bien, tout d'abord, pour la première fois en plusieurs décennies, le Canada a enfin atteint des cibles qu'on a fixées il y a plusieurs décennies pour de l'immigration francophone hors Québec. D'abord, il fallait se rendre là et notre gouvernement a pris ça extrêmement au sérieux. Et on va continuer d'assurer qu'on attire plus d'immigrants francophones à travers le pays. Mais il y a plus que juste ça à faire. Il faut qu'on s'assure que les communautés francophones en milieu minoritaire à travers le pays puissent s'épanouir, puissent avoir les services, que ce soit les services de garde, que ce soit des écoles comme l'Université francophone d'Ontario, que ce soit des appuis communautaires ou juridiques, avec la modernisation de la loi sur la langue officielle qui n'avait pas été faite depuis 50 ans. On a démontré notre engagement envers les deux langues officielles à travers le pays. Et on a reconnu en plus, pour la première fois, que le fédéral a un rôle à jouer aussi pour protéger la langue française, même à l'intérieur du Québec. Ça, c'est du jamais vu, mais c'est une réflexion de la réalité que le français est menacé à travers le pays et on a besoin d'en faire plus pour la protéger. C'est exactement ce qu'on est en train de faire.
Next question.
Hi, Mr. Trudeau. Mackenzie Gray with Global News. You've made a big show out of talking about housing this week, but your government hasn't announced anything new, despite the fact that the experts you heard from yesterday gave you and the cabinet multiple recommendations of 3 things the government could announce right now. Fresh poll out this morning has 40% of Canadians blaming you for housing issues. So when can we, or Canadians, expect that there will be new housing measures from your government?
We are looking forward to continue to do the work we've been doing on housing and do even more. We recognize, and Canadians know, that there's not one silver bullet that's going to solve the housing challenges. but they do know that a government that takes it seriously, that works collaboratively and ambitiously with partners across the country, that understands what Canadians are going through and focuses on real solutions, not just slogans and buzzwords, that's what's going to solve this challenge, because we've solved it before as a country. We're going to solve it again.
Next question.
Alex Ballingal with the Toronto Star. The OPP has referred its Greenbelt probe to the RCMP, so I'm wondering if you have any reaction to that. And then more broadly, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the Ford government's justification for going into the Greenbelt, that conservation areas should be, at least in part, opened up to help solve the housing crunch.
First of all, I'm not going to comment on decisions that police agencies make in terms of their investigations. I will refer to the RCMP for any comments or questions you want about this issue. Secondly, we've been very clear that yes, we need to ensure more housing is built across this country, more affordable housing is built across this country, more purpose-built rental stock is built across this country. That there are more options for young people who are working hard to join the middle class. These are things that we are focused on resolving. But we see densification, we see proper partnerships with municipalities across provinces as being essential to do that. And we don't think that the only solution is to build on protected lands. There are lots of things that we can and should be doing, and we're going to continue to work on that.
Next question.
Prime Minister Brian Platt with Bloomberg. I wanted to ask about the Trans Mountain pipeline extension. This fall, it'll be in its final stages of construction. Could you give us an update on your government's process for selling this, and in particular, how you intend to involve Indigenous groups, and how much of this $30 billion construction cost is your government going to have to eat on this sale?
From the very beginning, we knew that ensuring other markets for our oil and gas is extremely important. 99% of Canada's oil and gas exports flow to one other country, to the United States. And certainly, as we learned a few years ago with a less friendly administration, it's really important that we diversify our economic and our trade engagements around the world. That's where the Trans Mountain Pipeline, accessing markets across the Pacific, was really important for the Canadian economy and for our energy production. I'm very excited and interested that there are so many Indigenous groups interested in purchasing the TMX pipeline. We're engaged in conversations with them right now. It'd be premature to speculate too much on that, but I can tell you that the federal government is not in the business of running pipelines. We purchased that pipeline to ensure that it would be built and completed because that was in the national interest. But I know there's a lot of private groups, including Indigenous groups, very interested in running that pipeline because even as we transform our energy mix, even as we invest aggressively in renewables, we know that there is a need to supplant dirtier fuel around the world, and the Trans Mountain Pipeline is a part of the solution as we move towards a cleaner planet.
Can I just ask as a follow-up, do you need to prepare Canadians for taxpayers having to take a write-down on this when you sell it?
We are confident that the business case for the Trans Mountain Pipeline remains solid.
Hi, Prime Minister. Tom Perry with CBC. Pierre Poilievre is blaming you for pretty much every problem facing the country, whether that's crime. Big laugh from the gallery. That's great. Crime, inflation, a shortage of housing. And looking at the polls, I'm wondering if you think that message is sticking, if you think there's a large number of Canadians who blame you, not for trying to solve their problems, but making them worse.
One thing we've heard right across the country is that Canadians are going through a tough time right now. Inflation has given them a big kick in the teeth over the past year and a half, after the extraordinarily difficult situation that COVID was. And now interest rates causing huge challenges on home buyers and homeowners. And people are really feeling it. No wonder people are feeling anxious and upset. The question, of course, as politicians remains, what do we do when people are upset? How do we respond when people are fearful for their future, worried about their kids' prosperity, worried about their ability to pay their rent or buy groceries? What does leadership mean when people are hurting? Well, Mr. Poilievre has decided, let's make them even angrier. Let's give them a scapegoat. Let's point fingers and lay blame, because that's easy, and it is. That's not my approach. It hasn't been our approach as a government. Certainly when Mr. Harper was bringing the country in the wrong direction, as a party in 2014, 2015, we made a commitment to solve the challenges the middle class was facing, the struggles people working hard to join the middle class were facing. We put forward solutions, rolled up our sleeves, and got to work. We've lifted over 1 million people out of poverty, 500,000 kids out of poverty since 2015. We've created millions of new jobs. We've moved forward on reconciliation in ways that not only is lifting socioeconomic standards and ending boil water advisories across the country, but is creating economic activity and opportunity for the kinds of investments, whether it's lithium mines or small businesses, that are creating opportunity for Canadians across the country, Indigenous Canadians across the country. We're continuing to show leadership on climate, where we're drawing in massive global investments, creating good jobs for future generations, reassuring folks like the third-generation steel workers at the Dofasco plant in Hamilton that there's going to be a 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th generation of steel workers in Hamilton because of the investments we're making in electric arc transformation. Canadians are struggling. Canadians are worried. And they're seeing two different approaches to leadership right now. One that mirrors back that anger and frustration and amplifies it and lays blame without offering solutions. Or one that recognizes, yeah, times are really tough for a whole lot of people right now. And we're going to keep rolling up our sleeves and bringing forward the best possible solutions, because Canadians can get through this. This is the best country in the world, and we're going to keep making it even better.
The question, sir, is do you think that Canadians are blaming you for all that's wrong with this country?
I think Canadians are really worried and are looking at blaming anyone they can for it. And that's totally natural and totally right. The questions Canadians are also asking is, are we going to be able to fix it? Are we going to be able to get through this as a country? My answer is absolutely. And that's exactly what we're focused on. Okay. Je pense que les Canadiens sont très conscients qu'ils sont en train de vivre des moments extrêmement difficiles. Et les choix au niveau du leadership, c'est ou bien on amplifie cette anxiété, cette colère, comme le font les conservateurs, ou bien on met de l'avant des solutions. On se retrousse les manches, on se met au travail, on continue de travailler pour résoudre ces défis-là. C'est toujours plus lent, c'est toujours plus difficile de faire le travail, de répondre aux défis, que de simplement blâmer l'autre, comme M. Poilievre veut faire. Les Canadiens ont besoin de solutions. C'est exactement ce sur quoi on est en train de faire, parce que le Canada, c'est le meilleur pays au monde. On va continuer de l'améliorer encore plus.
Kat Tunney, CBC. There have been reports about grumblings in your caucus. MPs have said that they're hearing from voters that they're angry and frustrated, and the voters are saying that you're virtue signaling and not actually acting. Are you losing support of your caucus, and what are you going to do to calm those concerns?
As we've been out across the country, members of the Liberal Party, cabinet ministers, MPs, we've heard from Canadians who are facing difficult times, but also Canadians who know that the cutting in half of childcare fees over the past year has made a huge difference in their lives. That securing jobs for their communities with global investments like Volkswagen and St. Thomas, investments in Bécancour, more auto plants, more investments out west, is creating positive stability for the years to come. Yeah, people are facing tough times, and yes, everyone is finding it difficult right now. And as leaders, MPs, parliamentarians of all types, part of our job is to be there, to take it, to support it, as Canadians are worried and anxious, and put out those solutions. So yeah, it's not an easy time to be a politician. This is a time where politics is divided and toxic in so many ways. But it is so important that we continue to be there, to be positive and hopeful. I'm really looking forward to sitting down with all our great MPs in a few weeks in London, Ontario, to talk about all the work we're going to do together to continue to put forward a positive, ambitious vision for this country that solves the challenges that Canadians are facing. Builds solutions around housing, around supporting young people, around climate change, around reconciliation, around building an economy that works for all Canadians. These are the things that we're all focused on together. This is what I'm excited about.
Last question, dernière question.
Morning, Prime Minister. Teresa Wright. I'm with iPolitics today. Yesterday, Minister Wilkinson said he's willing to have conversations with Atlantic and Western premiers and provinces that have been raising concern about the financial impacts of the clean fuel regulations. Are you feeling pressure from Conservative premiers to make concessions on this program?
Canadians know that our future requires us to both fight climate change and benefit from the opportunities and investments that come with world-leading climate policies, while at the same time we're there to support families. That's what the price on pollution has done, by both standing up against climate change and putting more money in the pockets of Canadians, including right across Atlantic Canada. Clean fuel standards are an important part of how we make sure that Canada not only responds to climate change, but leads on climate change. I think citizens right across the country, in every corner of the country, know that you cannot have a plan for the future of the economy if you don't have a plan to fight climate change. But as always, we will work collaboratively and respectfully with all orders of government. Canadians want us to be working together to solve the big challenges they're facing, and we'll always do that.
Thank you. That will end today's press conference. Merci, ça va mettre fin à la conférence presse.
Merci beaucoup tout le monde. Thank you. Thank you, guys.